I am here today with writer, producer, Stephen L. Sears.
It was 1 year from that first script that I ever wrote. I was working with Cannell Productions. I had my own office. I was writing with a friend of mine, a partner, Bert Pearl, and we started out on a show called Riptide, and then we wrote for the A-Team, for Hardcastle and McCormick, Stringray, J.J. Starbuck, Hardball, Jesse Hawk, Swamp Thing, Superboy. I was a co-exec producer and writer on Xena. A lot of people remember that.
Yes, absolutely. And then you went to Florida and did Sheena.
Yes, after Xena, I co-created the series Sheena. Sheena, you see a pattern. You know, at best we'd had one meeting with a professional, but we'd never had a professional meeting about possibly getting an assignment. So we go into this meeting and we meet Tom, and we meet the executive producer of the series, Babs Grayhowski, whose lovely house we're in right now. We just hit it off. We spent a couple of hours, or at least it felt like a couple of hours, just laughing and kidding around and talking about things. We just all really hit it off, which is point number 2. Don't be afraid of your own personality. You know, extend yourself. Have fun with it. If you have fun with this, everybody will be put at ease. That goes for any artistic endeavor. But once again, I think we focus on writers because writers are such solitary people. We forget about those social graces that can actually aid us in a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So we just hit it off. Bert and I pitched 5 ideas we thought might be good for the series. 3 of them they thought were kind of interesting. 2 of them they threw out. And they said, why don't you think about those 3 and just come back and see if you've got a take on any of them. So we went home, worked on them. 2 of them we kind of figured out. 1 of them we couldn't. But I came up with another idea. And I pitched it to Bert, and Bert said, well, let's go in and see what will happen. So we went back in, pitched the 2 old ideas and the new idea. And they loved the new idea. So we started talking about the new idea, and we started talking about the way the story would be done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when that meeting was over, they said, why don't you go off and write up an outline? So we're like, sure, we'll go do that. So about a week later, we wrote up an outline. Came back in. Once again, we discussed the outline, how we would break down the story, et cetera. When we were done, Tom said, you know, I need your agent's information so I can tell business affairs. And I said, I don't want to come off ignorant, because actually I'm just very naive, but does that mean we got the assignment? And he said, oh, you got the assignment 2 weeks ago. And so we were like, oh my gosh. Now, when we walked out, to show you how naive Bert and I were, and how totally unprepared, neither one of us really had thought about a career as writers. We didn't know writers actually made money at it. And unfortunately, the rest of the industry doesn't either. When we walked out, I turned to Bert and, we're like, we're going to get paid for this. And Bert said, how much? And at that time, the day rate for an actor was $200 a day, way back then. So I said, well, I hope it's $500 because we'd have to split it. And, at that time, a 1-hour episode of Riptide was $15,000. So when we got paid our story fee, which we split between the 2 of us, they sent us a check for like $3,000 each. We freaked out. We didn't even understand why they'd given us that much money. We thought they'd like bought us out for the year or something. So we wrote the first draft of that particular script. And I remember the morning that I got the call back from Babs. It was on a Wednesday. We turned it in on the preceding Friday. And on Monday, Tom Blomquist had called back and said he had read our first draft, and that he was giving our name to the A-Team and to Hardcastle and McCormick because they might have script trouble and need some extra writers, which was thrilling enough. Wednesday morning, I am sleeping on the floor with my then girlfriend. I couldn't even afford a bed. I'd actually left Wampoppers. I was now putting ads in the front of shopping carts. I was making $130 a month. Thank you. So I'm sleeping on the floor. The phone rings, and I pick it up, and I'm half asleep. And I just go, hello? And I hear Babs on the other end, and she says, Steve, this is Babs Grayhowski. And I went, oh, hey, Babs, how you doing? And she said, I read your script. I really liked it. I gave it to Steve Cannell last night. He only had 1 note in the entire script. And we were wondering if you guys would like to come down here, get an office, and work with us full time. And I said, okay. And she said, this is absolutely true. She said, you're asleep, aren't you? And I went, uh-huh. And she goes, when you realize what I just said, call me back. So I went, okay. And I swear, as soon as the phone hit the cradle, I was like this, wide awake. And I turned to my girlfriend. I woke her up, and I said, was I just on the phone? And she said, I don't know. She was asleep. And I really didn't know if I dreamed that or if that was real. And it took me about 2 hours before I got the courage enough to call back, because I was like worried I was going to make a fool out of myself. And it was true. It was absolutely true. They had given us a staff job off of that, and I worked at Cannell for 4 years. I worked at Cannell.
Did they assign you to one show at that point, or were you just a floater? Or?
No, I was specifically assigned to Riptide. Mm. And it should be understood for anybody thinking of going in the television business. Cannell Studios was the premier boutique studio at the time. When I came on board, they had 3 shows in the top 10. I mean, Cannell was just incredibly prolific, and he was at the top of his game. He's a heck of a writer. He's now writing novels. If anybody's read his novels are great. But his studio was a bit of an anomaly compared to the rest of the business. Mm-hmm. So he really did run a 9-to-5 operation. It was just like a family. At most studios, you are assigned to a show and that's it. At Cannell, you are assigned to a show, but you can still be a floater. If you are on a staff job with a TV show, your contract specifies that you can't work on another TV series. Mm-hmm. However, that's to the discretion of the producers. And since it was all Stephen Cannell, so we worked specifically on Riptide, but Bert and I were also allowed to write, we wrote a Hardcastle and McCormick as a freelance. Mm-hmm. And I think we wrote 2 A-teams as freelancers. And then when Riptide was over, we went on to the A-team as full-time staff members. And then after that was Stringray, and then after that was J.J. Starbuck. Yes, I think I had that chronology correct. And then from there, I left Cannell and I went to work with Glenn Larson on another series, and then another series, and then another series, and then another series. But in its ideal form, a writer's guide is a guide to writing the show. It lists all the characters, regular, semi-recurring characters, tells you about every one of them, tells you about all the standing sets, which are the sets that have been built and stay throughout the series. Pick any series that you are a fan of, and you'll notice if it's a hospital series, there's obviously the ER and the break room and whatever. Those are standing sets. Then the writer's guide will also talk about the tone of the series. Will also, if it's updated, it will mention all the episodes that have been done, the character relationships, and possibly upcoming episodes that have not been assigned yet, but that they're considering. So it is pretty much just what it says. It's a guide to the writers.
Why do you think it is? I mean, there's a lot of people in the arts that really decide they want to do something. They'll move to Los Angeles or move to some large city, and they'll really pursue what it is they want. And in some cases, they don't fall into something as easily as you did and as quickly. I mean, it was within a year that this happened, that you morphed from being an actor, where you got your degree from Florida State. You morphed from being an actor right into being a writer. I mean, some of that is divine, but, I mean, why do you think that happened so fast for you?
Actually, I think the question is the reverse. Why doesn't it happen for other people? Well, what I found time and time again with the younger generation, and that's not a bad label. It's just it's definitive. Who come out here and want to break into the arts, they have focused on something, and in their mind, they have focused on that as the only possible thing that they ever wanted. And a lot of that is not just because it's something you've fallen in love with. For a lot of kids, it's also because of the flack and the resistance they've gotten from people around them. From the ones who do not have understanding parents about it. And I have to caveat that by saying, your parents are trying to look out for you. They look at the odds. They look at the difficulties, and they don't want you to go through that. So understand that anytime your parents tell you, well, you should, wake up, get a real job. Just kind of keep in mind where they're coming from.
They care about you.
They're trying to be protective. Mm-hmm. However, when you have focused in on something like acting, I want to be an actor. I love acting. I love performing. You'll never be able to make a career in it. Give that up. Do it as a hobby at best, but, wake up. Well, I'm going to do it. I'm absolutely going to do it. Now you're reinforcing the fact that you have to do it. When I came out here to Los Angeles, I actually never really thought of myself as an actor. I figured that's where I would, that's what I would do. That's where I would break in. But I never used that term so definitively with me. To me, I was an entertainer.